Well, earlier this week, the US President Donald Trump threw his support behind actress Sydney Sweeney, who's facing criticism over a recent advertising campaign she featured in. The American Eagle ads featured the star alongside slogan, "Sydney Sweeney has great genes." It's since been criticised by some who are accusing it of being a racist ad and promoting the theory of eugenics. Joining me live now is Nathan Daschle. He's a Democrat lobbyist and president of the Daschle Group. Thanks so much for your time, Nathan. We can always discuss quite surprising things, but hey, this is on our bingo card for this week. And I wanted to talk to you about it because I spoke to former White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney a couple of days ago, and he just said that there's certainly been a shift in the United States when it comes to the woke agenda. So, this is different from how it could have been 4 years ago. And whilst there are, some interest groups jumping up and down about this, it's really not a mainstream view. How do you view this in the context of, cultural America at the moment?
Well, I would say a few things. First of all, I would give incredible props to American Eagle because this is exactly the kind of attention that they wanted to get with this advertising campaign. We are all talking about this. It leads me to my second point, which is that this ad is clearly not targeted at 51-year-old white males, because I have never seen this ad except for in the news. And third, I have a full-time job. I have 2 kids. I have so many other things to do than worry about imposing my taste on an advertising campaign. And I think this is one of those 80-20 issues where 80% of the people really don't care. 20% of the people are fired up about it.
Do you think a lot of it is the politics of envy? I mean, I look at the groups and the types of people, if I can put it that way. Don't really want to put people in one basket as one homogenous group, but there seems to be a lot of envy around this and a bit of tall poppy syndrome, particularly directed at Sydney Sweeney. Do you think that's a fair assessment?
I honestly have no idea. Because I honestly, I can't understand the emotional reaction to this campaign and why people would get so upset about it. American companies have used sex to sell products for generations. There's nothing new about that. And, so nothing about this surprises me, but it just doesn't trigger an emotional reaction in any way. And so I really can't empathize with those who are upset about it.
That's right. It is selling sex. It is a sexy ad. Sydney Sweeney is sexy. I think, most of us could agree on that. But then you have minorities seeming to hijack this, wanting to complain about because it's somehow racist. Do you follow that thread even?
I don't. I mean, I think that you could probably look at anything and find a reason to criticize it.
Yeah.
But the reality is, like I said, we all have far better things to do. I mean,
some people don't. Clearly, Nathan, they clearly don't. Exactly. And this comes down to what I think has been on the rise in the last couple of years, is that people are addicted to complaining. They're addicted to grievance politics, to some kind of conflict. And on corners of the internet, they can always find people that agree with them. And then they feel like they're part of some special club.
Well, I would agree with that, but I think it is a minority of people who feel that way. I don't think it's a majority of people. And I sort of blame the media, not Sky News, but the media, for giving voice to this, because I feel like they're creating a conflict where in reality, most people I talk to just simply do not care about this ad.
Yeah, I can understand where you're going with that, absolutely. But often when you look at American culture, pop culture in particular, it's these kinds of issues that seems to get amplified, particularly in the United States. Often say that the US can be the absolute best, but sometimes the absolute worst of things. And I think this kind of grievance, attention-seeking stuff is probably the worst in the US.
Well, I don't know how I would characterize it, but like I said, I don't think it speaks for a majority of people. I
Mm,
think that it's easy to take a small minority of people
yeah.
and elevate them and give them voice and make them seem larger than they are. But I really think the majority of Americans are not moved one way or another by this ad. And like I said,
Yeah,
I
I
think
agree with
most
you.
people would never have seen this ad but for the media.
But how do you think the pendulum has shifted in the United States? Because I think once upon a time, there were many people within your party, within the Democrats, that would have kind of bowed to this. And perhaps not this exactly, but they would have played into some of the woke agenda and that grievance politics. How do you think that has shifted?
That might be true. I do think that after the 24 elections, I think the Democrats have had to reflect a little bit
Yeah.
on what at least some people call the woke agenda. And I'm not even sure if that term is fair because there underlying it are some legitimate sensitivities and
Yeah.
legitimate concerns. But I do think the Democrats after 24 did take a hard look at themselves, and we had an honest conversation and had to think like, is this what we want to present to the rest of America? And is there a better way of addressing our concerns here without inflaming them and making them vast cultural wars?
Yeah, so is that like an acknowledgement within the Democrats more broadly, do you think, Nathan, that identity politics and really leaning into that is certainly not the way to go in terms of wanting
No
to
doubt.
actually be back in a winning
Yes.
position? Yeah.
That is absolutely correct. Yes, absolutely. I think Democrats have realized that what's known as identity politics is not the path to victory. That is not how we get 50% plus one of Americans to vote for us in a national election.
Yeah, welcome. Nathan, great to chat today.